She wore my robe, that pale pink one with the lace sleeves I got from Macy's 3 Christmases ago, the one I never took to Atlanta, the one I kept hanging in the guest bathroom at the Florida cottage, the house nobody knew I still owned. She walked out onto the porch like she belonged there, my porch, holding my wine glass, wearing my robe. And my husband? He was right behind her, laughing, smiling, tucking her hair behind her ear the way he used to do with me, back when he still remembered how my curls smelled after rain. I watched them from my phone, sitting at my kitchen table in Atlanta, the same table where we'd had pancakes that morning. He'd poured the syrup, kissed my cheek, told me he loved me, then drove off for his retreat. My name is Denise. I'm 47 years old, and this is the story of how I learned silence can be louder than revenge. The thing about me is I've always kept a little something tucked away. Call it instinct, call it survival. My Aunt Joyce used to say, "Don't let nobody know where your last dollar's buried, baby, or your spare key." She left me that Florida cottage in her will, tiny 2-bedroom off the Gulf Coast, just outside Clearwater, white siding, screen porch, fig tree out back, humid nights full of crickets and memory. I didn't tell my husband about it, didn't see the need. It was mine, the one piece of peace I owned outright. Bills came to my maiden name at a P.O. box, paid from an old credit union account nobody asked about. He thought it sold years ago. We'd been married 14 years, built a respectable life in Atlanta. 3-bedroom in East Point, matching Camrys, lawn sign that read, "Faith, Family, Freedom." He loved how that looked, picture perfect. I worked HR at a hospital system, order, policy, structure, that was me. He was a consultant, which translated meant too much free time and a gift for talking without saying anything measurable. At first, I blamed the iPad. That's how it started. He left it charging in the kitchen one Friday morning. I was making coffee, scrolling for a podcast, when it pinged, some cloud sync alert. His iPhone photos had uploaded. Curiosity is a drug, and I took a hit. First photo, innocent. Him at a gas station, holding a Red Bull, grinning like a teenager. Second photo, not innocent. The woman. Passenger seat, Starbucks cup. That fake surprised face women make when they're trying to look effortless. Blonde braids, long lashes, skin gleaming like vacation light. Maybe 30, wearing a blue sundress. My heart didn't shatter. It folded, quiet, neat like paper. I kept swiping. Beach selfies, dinner plates, her in a robe, my robe, holding a wine glass, sitting on a porch swing. That porch swing, the one from the Florida cottage. The swing I painted seafoam green myself the summer after Aunt Joyce passed. My thumb froze. Then muscle memory took over. I opened the Security Cam app, the cheap motion sensor cam I'd installed after Hurricane Ida. It was meant for weather alerts, not betrayal. It connected. Live feed. There she was, feeding him strawberries on my porch. My husband, laughing, head tilted back, that same half grin he'd used on me when we first met in line at Publix. He kissed her, slow, familiar. She laughed, tossing her braids, sunlight catching on my wine glass. That's when it landed in my chest, cold, surgical. He was hiding his mistress in the one place he thought didn't exist, the house I never told him I owned. I didn't cry, didn't scream, I just sat. The kitchen clock ticked loud enough to feel. Outside, a delivery truck hissed past. Life kept going, cruelly normal. I looked at the time, 11:14. a.m. I typed, "How's the retreat?" He answered in seconds. "Just checked in. Long drive, but made it. Love you." Blue bubble. Vanished. I stared at that lie until the letters blurred. Then I screenshot every photo, downloaded every clip from the camera, organized them into a Google Drive folder labeled Insurance. Then I opened my laptop, logged into the hospital portal, and went to work, HR meetings, budget reviews, policy drafts. My smile stayed steady. I even laughed when Dr. Henderson made his usual dad joke. But inside, a fault line widened. pressure building beneath calm skin. Every time my phone buzzed, I felt that porch again, my swing, her laughter. Still, I kept my voice soft, my movements slow, the same way you carry a full cup across a crowded room. By 5 o'clock, I had a plan forming behind my smile. First step, the lawyer. My cousin Tracy worked family law in Sandy Springs. I didn't call. Calls leave tone, emotion, evidence. I emailed, attached a few files. Subject line, private matter. She replied 10 minutes later. I got you. Weekend works. Second step, the money. He's careless. Always has been. Leaves receipts in jeans, bank apps open on his tablet. I logged into the joint account, filtered for Clearwater transactions. Seabreeze Bistro, $164, Beach Haven Resort, $412. Sunkissed Blooms, $68. He'd been planning this. Coordinated meals, flowers, sheets, using our money, in my house. A hollow sound left my body, half laugh, half ache. I pressed my palms to the countertop until the tremor passed. Then I reached for a yellow legal pad and wrote 3 words, neat block letters. Play it cool. That night, I folded laundry, ironed his shirts, cooked lemon pepper chicken. Routine as armor. He called around 9, said he'd turn in early. Said the Wi-Fi was spotty. I said, rest up. He didn't hear the click of my pen marking the next step. Sunday evening came wrapped in sunset. I'd already moved half our joint savings into a new personal account. My half, nothing more. I froze the credit cards, set up notifications on the rest, called the county clerk to confirm my property filings. I was calm, surgical. When he walked through the door, suitcase rolling behind him, he smelled like ocean and hotel soap. He kissed my cheek, warm, casual. Retreat was good, he said, dropping his bag on the couch. Same old team-building stuff. I smiled. Glad you got some rest. He loosened his belt, sighed, leaned against the counter. You good? I matched his tone. I'm perfect. He grinned, satisfied, thinking the world was right again. He didn't see the folder tucked inside my work bag, didn't notice my phone face down but still recording, didn't realize the house he was cheating in had eyes, and they belonged to me. The first time I ever saw that house, I was 13, barefoot, knees ashy, and licking a strawberry push pop while Aunt Joyce yelled at the neighbor's dog for peeing on her azaleas. The sun hit the porch just right that day. You could smell the salt in the air, the sweetness of cut grass, and the faint coconut oil that always clung to Aunt Joyce's hair. I remember the boards under my feet, hot from the afternoon heat, but smooth, like someone had loved them for years. That cottage wasn't just a house. It was her. Back then, I didn't know what peace meant. I only knew how it felt. A mix of ocean breeze, blue magic hair grease, and somebody humming Al Green in the kitchen. Aunt Joyce built that place with her second husband, the one she actually liked, the one who called her queen and meant it. They'd built it back when Florida still had orange groves stretching for miles, before the condos came and the beaches turned crowded. The porch wrapped all the way around, and the screen door squeaked like it was singing backup. Every summer, she'd let me stay for 2 weeks. I'd sit in the swing with a notebook, pretending to write stories, but really just watching her. She'd hum and talk to herself while hanging laundry, always saying, "A woman's got to have something that's hers, baby. Whether it's a dream, a key, or a piece of land, keep it tucked away. Don't give the whole thing away, not even for love." Those words lived in me. So when she passed and left that house to me, I didn't see it as inheritance. I saw it as instruction. The week after my husband came back from his retreat, Aunt Joyce's voice was all I could hear. I'd sit across from him at dinner, pretending to listen while he chewed and talked about business. The man could lie and smile at the same time. That was his real skill. He'd reach for my hand sometimes, ask how work was going, kiss my forehead before bed, snore beside me like he hadn't just betrayed the very air I breathed. But I knew. I'd seen her in my robe, on my porch, holding my wine glass with his hand resting on her thigh. He thought he was slick. I was slicker, Every night after he fell asleep, I pulled out my laptop, sat at the dining table with just the stove light on. I started small. Online banking. Logged into our joint account. Searched the history. There it was, a gas station in Valdosta, halfway between Atlanta and Clearwater. 2 fill-ups same week, then came the SunPass toll records. He went through exit 34B 3 times that month. 3. He'd been driving the same road Aunt Joyce used to take when she wanted to see the water at sunset. Meanwhile, he was telling me about system migrations and late-night team syncs. I downloaded every statement, highlighted every timestamp. When I finished, the pages covered the table like puzzle pieces made of betrayal. I zoomed out, studied them, and saw the whole picture. He'd been bringing her to my sanctuary, sleeping with her in my sheets, cooking in my kitchen, living in the one place that ever truly belonged to me. My pulse throbbed in my ears, heavy and slow. That kind of anger doesn't roar. It hums. It's quiet, controlled, sharp. I didn't go off, didn't throw a fit or break a dish. Instead, I bought another camera. Small, voice-activated, disguised as a smoke detector. Drove down one Friday early, told him I was staying late at work. He believed it. I installed the camera above the kitchen light and drove back before sunrise. By Monday night, I had a new live feed. The next time they came, I saw everything. He walked in first, carrying grocery bags, whistling. She followed behind, humming. She wore a yellow sundress this time, twirling like she owned the air in that house. He told her, "This place belonged to a client of mine. He lets me use it sometimes." She smiled and said, "It's so cozy, like it has a woman's touch." He grinned, poured her wine, and said, "Yeah, maybe that's why I like it here." And then he kissed her, right there in front of Aunt Joyce's photo on the mantel. I watched every second. My hands didn't shake. My eyes didn't blink. I let it burn into me, quiet and clear, because this story wasn't about him anymore. It was about how I'd get free. I sent the footage to my cousin Tracy. She called within minutes. "Girl," she said, voice low but strong, "do not pass go. Do not confront him. I'll draft everything this weekend." I didn't even need to respond. She knew that tone in my silence. Next morning, I called in sick. Told my manager I had a dentist appointment. Technically true, I had a toothache in my spirit. I drove downtown to the Fulton County Clerk's office with my documents in a neat leather folder, updated my records. Then I went to my old condo in East Atlanta, the one I bought before marriage, rented out and kept in my maiden name. Moved it into a private trust. Same with the Florida house. 2 signatures, 2 notarized forms, 2 invisible walls he'd never break through. I opened a new P.O. box under that trust name. That was my Aunt Joyce move. Quiet, legal, final. He'd never see me coming. That Saturday, I asked my sister, Nina, to host a family dinner. Fried. Chicken, mac and cheese, collard greens, peach cobbler, the works. Just a normal Saturday, or so it seemed. I told him, "Nina's cooking. You know she'll be offended if you don't come." He laughed, said, "You know your sister don't like me much." I smiled. "Then you can win her over tonight." He grinned, thinking he still had charm. The house smelled like butter and music. Nina had Frankie Beverly playing low, candles flickering on the table, cousins laughing, kids running through the hall. It was warm, noisy. The kind of place you can hide a secret in plain sight. He showed up 15 minutes late, wearing that blue button-up he knew looked good on him. Walked in like the world still clapped when he entered. I greeted him with a hug, even kissed his cheek. The performance was Oscar-worthy. At one point, I passed him the cornbread and said, "You okay?" He smiled, took it, looked me right in the eye. "Yeah, you've been quiet lately. Everything okay with you?" I wanted to laugh. I wanted to throw the cornbread at his smug face. Instead, I smiled and said softly, "Just a lot on my mind." He reached under the table and squeezed my hand, and I squeezed back. "I know," I said. Nina watched us from across the room. I saw the question forming in her eyes, but I gave her a look that said, "Don't." After dinner, he left early. Some excuse about a Sunday client meeting. On a Saturday night? Nina muttered. I said, let it go. But my heart already knew where he was going. He probably thought he was headed to paradise again. I was headed toward liberation. After he left, I helped Nina clean up, rinsing dishes, talking about the cousins, pretending my life wasn't unraveling and rebuilding at the same time. When everyone left, I sat in my car for a long time before turning the key. The street was quiet. Somewhere in the distance, a train moaned through Atlanta's night air. When I finally got home, I poured a glass of Pinot, curled on the couch, and opened the camera feed. And there she was again. My robe, my porch, my wine glass. This time, I didn't feel the sharp sting, just a steady calm, like standing still before a storm you've already mapped. I watched until they went inside. Then I closed the laptop, exhaled slow, and started printing. Receipts, screenshots, bank logs, photos, each page a brick in the wall I was building between me and him. When I was done, I slid everything into a manila folder and wrote across the front in black ink, Petition for divorce, Denise L. Carter versus Marcus D. Carter. Tracy filed it the next morning, no delay. Grounds, infidelity, misuse of marital assets, emotional cruelty. We served him on a Wednesday, at his office, certified USPS delivery, signature required. Inside the envelope was the full petition and a photo. Him on my porch, kissing blue dress. That afternoon, my phone buzzed 37 times. I didn't answer a single one. Not a text, not a call, not even when he switched to unknown number. Because silence, baby. Silence is the sound of strategy, and by then the game had already shifted. He came home in a rage, the kind of rage that rattles the air before a single word is spoken. Keys slammed against the counter, hard enough to make the ceramic bowl tremble. Shoes kicked off without care, thudding across the hardwood. His breath came in short, uneven bursts, and his face, Lord, his face wasn't red from shame. It was red from panic. He'd been caught, and he knew it. I got served at work, Denise? What the hell is this? I didn't flinch, didn't even turn my head. I was standing at the sink, rinsing out a chipped white mug, the one that said, Mrs. Always Right in faded gold letters. He'd given it to me as a joke our second Christmas. Now it felt more like prophecy. His voice rose. Divorce papers? Are you serious right now? Water trickled down the drain, slow and steady. I dried my hands on the towel hanging from the oven handle, turned around, and faced him. You want to talk here? I said softly. Or in front of a judge? That shut him up for a second. His mouth opened, closed. He blinked. His eyes darted like he was trying to find the version of me that used to smooth things over. The woman who always made peace. The one who'd take a deep breath and say, let's just talk about it. But she wasn't home anymore. I crossed my arms and waited. You thought, I said, my tone even, you could lie, cheat, and vacation on my dime in a house you didn't even know I owned, and that I'd just stay quiet? He started his show then. The same routine he'd probably practiced in the mirror. Hands up, voice soft, eyes wide. The innocent husband act. It's not like that, he said. She doesn't mean anything, I swear, Denise. It was just a situation. I was helping her with what? I asked. My wine, my electricity bill, my robe? He stammered, reaching for words that wouldn't save him. It's not what you think. That house, I told her it belonged to a colleague. I didn't mean, you made her eggs in my cast iron skillet. The words came out flat. No heat, no tremor, just truth. He froze. His lips parted, but no sound came. His hands dropped to his sides. His eyes flicked to the floor like he wanted to sink into it. And I stood there, watching the calculations flash across his face. What I knew, what I had, how deep this went. But he didn't ask the real question. He didn't ask how I owned that house, didn't ask why I never told him, because deep down, he already knew. The silence between us felt thick, alive. I looked at him, and saw a man unraveling. But what hit me harder was the realization that maybe he hadn't changed at all. Maybe I was just seeing him clearly for the first time. The charm, the quick excuses, the easy grin. They weren't defenses. They were tactics. He'd always been rehearsing. That night, he packed a duffel bag, grabbed a handful of clothes, mumbled something about needing space, slammed the door like punctuation. I didn't stop him, didn't chase him down the driveway like a desperate wife from a made-for-TV movie. I locked the door behind him, turned off the lights, and slept like a baby. The next morning, sunlight poured through the blinds, warm and gold. My coffee tasted different, sharper somehow, like freedom brewing slow. Over the next 2 weeks, I moved with quiet precision. Every hour had a purpose. Every errand was strategy. I met with Tracy and her legal team in a glass-walled office that smelled like peppermint and printer ink. She slid a stack of papers across the table. "We'll start with an asset protection order," she said, voice steady. "You'll get temporary control of the joint accounts. We'll freeze any attempt to move or sell property." I nodded, signing where she pointed. Each signature felt like reclaiming a piece of my own name. Next, I filed a request for exclusive financial access, a fancy way of saying, "You can't touch my money, baby." Then came the part that felt the sweetest, the Florida house. I drafted a formal letter to the Homeowners Association stating that no future visits, repairs, or rentals were to occur without my written consent. Any access, any key, any maintenance request, all had to go through my attorney. I changed the locks, canceled the Wi-Fi, shut off the power for exactly 7 days, just long enough to make his next retreat feel a little more humbling. But I wasn't done. Revenge, for me, was never about shouting. It was about clarity. So I decided to send a message, one he couldn't twist, argue, or charm his way through, a care package. Inside, I placed a printed copy of the trust deed, Aunt Joyce's original signature still crisp in blue ink. The notarized inheritance letter with her handwriting at the bottom, "For Denise, keep this for yourself." Bank statements showing every payment I'd made over the years from my own account, and a single handwritten note on thick ivory paper folded neatly. I used the same pen I'd signed our marriage certificate with. It said, "This house was never yours. Not the walls, not the bed, not the woman who built it before you ever came along. Consider this your last visit." I boxed it up, tied it with a deep red ribbon, neat, elegant, final. Then I left it on the nightstand at the Florida cottage, right next to a bottle of the same wine he'd poured for her. 2 days later, I was sitting in a salon chair in Decatur, cape around my shoulders, the smell of coconut conditioner thick in the air. My stylist, Tasha, was talking about her son's PTA drama, something about cupcakes and cheating on a bake-off. I half listened, scrolling my phone when the security alert popped up. Motion detected. Clearwater Cottage. My thumb froze. I tapped the feed. There he was, standing in the middle of the bedroom, holding the envelope. Alone. No blue dress, no laughter, no wine. Just him and the sound of his own breathing. He sat down on the edge of the bed, the same bed he'd defiled. 15 full minutes passed. He didn't move, didn't drink, didn't rage, just stared at those papers like they were written in a language he couldn't read. I watched from my phone, the hum of the blow dryer in the background. That was the first time I felt pity for him, and the last. By the end of that week, Tracy called with an update. His lawyer reached out, she said. They're asking for a negotiation, quiet settlement, no court, no publicity. I took a long sip of coffee, staring out the window at the morning traffic. "No," I said. "Want me to send a counter?" "Yes. Full retention of marital property, site misuse of funds, emotional cruelty and infidelity, with evidence." Tracy chuckled softly. "You got it." His lawyer blinked. Mine didn't. That weekend, I took myself out to dinner, a corner table at a small Italian spot off Peachtree. Low lights, candles flickering in little glass cups, the kind of jazz that sounds like forgiveness. I ordered exactly what I wanted: olive oil pasta, a glass of Merlot, and a chocolate mousse I didn't have to share. When the waiter asked, "Will anyone be joining you tonight?" I smiled. "No," I said. "It's just me." And it felt good. Really good. Halfway through dessert, my phone lit up. His name on the screen. Twice. Then again. I watched it ring out, untouched. Then I pressed block. No second thoughts. No regret. Just quiet. When I got home, I took off my earrings, kicked off my heels, turned on my jazz playlist, Coltrane Slow and Smoky, and I danced barefoot across the kitchen floor. Not fast, not wild, just enough to feel my body again, to feel the weight of peace settling in my bones. The house was still. My shadows spun across the cabinets. I wasn't broken. I wasn't bitter. I was rebuilding, brick by brick, beat by beat. I was building a life he could no longer enter. The night before the hearing, I slept like the sea. Not peaceful, but deep, full of motion, full of memory, full of power I didn't yet know how to name. Dreams came heavy. They rolled in and out like waves, breaking softly against the edges of my mind. In the dream, Aunt Joyce was standing in the Florida kitchen. She had on her floral house dress, the blue one with little lemons on it. Her hair was wrapped in a scarf, and her slippers scuffed the linoleum floor as she stirred collard greens with one hand and rested the other on her hip. "Keep something for yourself, baby," she said, voice thick with that Gulf drawl, "and make sure they don't find it till it's too late." She winked at me, spoon tapping the pot like punctuation. The smell of smoked turkey and vinegar filled the air. Then thunder rolled somewhere far off, low and steady, like a warning and a promise at once. I woke before the sun. The world outside was quiet, that pre-dawn stillness when even the birds hold their breath. I made coffee, black, no sugar, no cream. I wanted the bitterness pure. Then I dressed. Cream suit, soft shoulder pads, mother-of-pearl buttons that caught the faint kitchen light. I slipped on flat nude heels, lip balm, clear mascara, simple gold studs. I didn't want to look like power. I wanted to look like proof. Proof that calm could carry its own thunder. Proof that dignity could be sharper than any weapon. The drive downtown was slow and gray. Clouds hung low, pressing against the skyline like the sky itself didn't want to see what was coming. Atlanta traffic crawled, but I didn't mind. I kept the radio off. I preferred silence, the kind that makes you think clearer. When I pulled up to the courthouse, I sat for a moment before going in. My hands rested on the steering wheel. My pulse was calm. For the first time in months, I wasn't shaking. Inside, everything smelled like paper and cold air. The click of heels on marble echoed down the hallway. Marcus was late. Of course he was. He always showed up when it was convenient for him. Never on time, just on his time. When he finally appeared, he looked like regret wearing human skin. Wrinkled shirt, tie crooked, eyes sunken. Sleep hadn't visited him in days. He didn't look at me at first. Just kept shifting in his seat while Tracy organized the paperwork. Tracy was composed as always, black blazer, neat bun, a quiet storm in heels. She slid a folder across the table toward his lawyer with a small nod that said, "Your move." The judge entered. A black woman, maybe early 60s, silver curls, gold hoops, clear eyes that saw through pretense. She didn't smile. She didn't need to. We all stood, then sat. She looked at me first. "Miss Carter," she said, voice calm but firm, "do you have anything you wish to say before we proceed?" I turned my head toward Marcus. His eyes flickered up, searching for the softness he used to find there. There was none left. "No, Your Honor," I said evenly. "Everything I needed to say is in the file." Tracy handed over Exhibit C, the neat, merciless record of truth. Photos, footage, receipts. My aunt's notarized trust paperwork, bank statements showing the misuse of funds, every timestamp, every lie cataloged in black and white. Marcus squirmed. His lawyer cleared his throat, fumbled through a folder, and began the tired song of excuses. My client, he said, was under emotional duress. There was a lapse in marital communication. He's willing to negotiate. The judge raised a hand. "Mr. Carter," she said, turning directly to him, "did you or did you not take another woman to your wife's inherited property under false pretenses?" Marcus froze. His jaw flexed once. Twice. "Yes, ma'am." "Did you claim the property belonged to someone else?" "Yes." "Did you use joint marital funds to finance those trips?" A pause so long you could hear the second hand ticking on the courtroom clock. "Yes." The judge nodded once, slow. "Thank you. That will be all." No more performance. No more pleading. It was over. I didn't cheer, didn't sigh, didn't even smile. I just watched as the judge signed the orders, each stroke of her pen like a drumbeat closing out a song. All marital property, awarded to me. Retirement accounts, divided but with penalties applied to him for fraud. Spousal support, denied due to misconduct. Florida property recognized as a non-marital inheritance, never commingled, fully mine. The judge glanced up. Her eyes softened just a touch. "Ms. Carter," she said, "you may leave this court with your dignity intact. Mr. Carter, I suggest you reconsider your definition of honesty." Gavel. Silence. Then life moved on. Outside, the air felt brighter, lighter, like the sky had been holding its breath for me and finally let it go. I stepped down those marble steps slowly, each click of my heel echoing against the courthouse columns. The breeze lifted my hair just enough to remind me I was still here, still standing. People rushed past me, couples arguing, mothers clutching folders, men in suits muttering into phones. But I didn't hear any of it. I just stood there, breathing. For the first time in years, I wasn't afraid of starting over. That weekend, I drove down to the Florida cottage, alone. No jewelry, no suitcase full of memories, just a small duffel bag, one swimsuit, a few paperbacks, a fresh eucalyptus mint candle. The drive felt different this time. The highway stretched out wide and forgiving. The trees lining the road shimmered in the heat like they were applauding. When I turned onto the familiar gravel road, something in me loosened. The house came into view. White siding, wraparound porch, shutters painted the same seafoam green Aunt Joyce had chosen decades ago. It looked like it was exhaling, like it had been waiting on me. Inside, everything smelled like lemons, fresh, clean, honest. I opened every window, let the air roll through the rooms until the curtains swayed and the floors sighed. Then I walked barefoot down to the shore. The sand was warm, soft as bread dough beneath my feet. The tide whispered at my ankles, cool and steady. I looked back at the porch swing and smiled. That house had always been mine. Not because of the deed, not because of the court stamp, but because of what it held. Memory, survival, and silence that spoke volumes. I lit the candle, set it by the window, pulled out my phone and played Sam Cooke's "A Change Is Gonna Come." The melody wrapped around the house like a prayer. I poured a glass of wine, sat on the swing, watched the ocean stretch into the distance. The horizon was pink and gold, that late evening hush that makes you believe in new beginnings. I wasn't celebrating. I was honoring the woman I'd become, the woman who didn't scream, didn't beg, didn't lose herself trying to make someone else whole. She just planned. She waited. She let the truth do the shouting for her. I rocked slowly, the wood creaking beneath me like an old hymn. The sun dropped lower, turning the water into liquid fire. I felt something ease in my chest. Not joy exactly. Something quieter, something steadier. Peace. Real peace. My phone buzzed on the table beside me. The screen lit up. Unknown number. "Can we talk?" I stared at it for a moment. Then I turned the phone over, face down, the same way I had the first day I caught him lying. The ocean kept moving. The candle flame flickered. The sky went from gold to indigo. I closed my eyes, leaned back, and let the breeze kiss my cheek. I didn't need to answer. Not anymore. By September, the air had started to shift. That heavy southern heat, the kind that sticks to your skin and hums against the windows, finally began to loosen its grip. The mornings carried a thin coolness, just enough to crack the windows and let the sound of cicadas fade into something gentler. The leaves around the Florida cottage turned slow, not like Georgia where the seasons change all at once, loud and dramatic. No, here, it was patient. Just the tips first, soft brown brushing against green, like the trees were testing the wind before they decided to let go completely. The mornings had a rhythm now, barefoot in the kitchen, oatmeal simmering in a dented pot, cinnamon floating in the air, laptop open beside the stove, email tabs blinking. Work had started to feel normal again. Not happy, not exciting, just steady. And steady felt sacred. The final court filings had come through the week before, stamped, sealed, archived in the system. No more negotiations, no more signatures, no more waiting for someone else's decision. Divorced. Done. The word sounded strange in my head, like a church bell rung in an empty sanctuary. I thought I'd feel something big when the envelope arrived. Joy, maybe. Or grief. Or a rush of freedom so loud it could drown out the memory of him. But instead, I felt still. Still in the kind of way that comes after a storm has done all the damage it can do. When the air smells clean again, even with debris still on the ground. It wasn't joy. It wasn't sadness. It was something better. Peace. I kept the envelope in the kitchen drawer right next to the rubber bands, old batteries and loose screws. Ordinary things that always end up holding a household together. I didn't even open it for 2 days. When I finally did, the first thing I saw was the judge's signature. Bold, elegant, final. The second was my own name, Denise L. Carter, sitting neatly above the line that read, sole owner of all, listed property. For a long time, I just stared at it. Then I smiled, not a big, triumphant smile, not one for pictures or friends, just the quiet kind, the kind that curls at the corner of your mouth when you know you did something hard and you did it right. Later that evening, I made myself a glass of peach tea and took a throw blanket out to the porch. The sun was melting into the tree line, soft and slow. The porch swing creaked as I settled in. I thought about calling Nina, about telling her the papers were finally official, but I didn't. Some victories don't need an audience. Some peace is meant to be private. The iPad pinged once, a sound I'd almost forgotten. I frowned. I disconnected most of the cloud accounts, but apparently one thread had stayed tangled. The message preview appeared before I could stop it. From Marcus, just 2 words. I'm sorry. That was it. No explanation, no begging, no attempt to fix what had long been burned down to ash. I stared at it for a full minute, the glow of the screen soft against the dimming light. Then I pressed the power button, watched the screen go black, and slid the iPad into the drawer with the papers. No block, no reply, just silence. Because silence, by then, had learned how to speak for me. He'd used a new number. I could tell. Maybe he was somewhere else now. In some rented apartment, trying to play fresh start with the same habits. Maybe she was there too. Maybe not. Either way, I didn't care. I hadn't heard from Blue Dress since that day. No messages, no confrontation, no attempt to clear her conscience. And honestly, I didn't expect to. Women like her always find out eventually. The same way I did. Quietly, piece by piece, until the truth unravels like a thread you can't stop pulling. I pictured her realizing what that house really was, what it represented, what it had survived. She walked into that cottage thinking she was stepping into a secret. She didn't realize she was trespassing on a legacy. One lazy afternoon, while folding towels, I found something wedged behind the linens, an old envelope I didn't recognize. The paper was yellowed, corners soft from years of hiding. Aunt Joyce's handwriting looped across the front. For Denise. My chest tightened as I opened it. Inside was a single sheet, creased down the middle. The ink had faded, but her voice came through clear as day. This place is for your peace, not your performance. Don't let no man turn your refuge into a reward he hasn't earned. I sat there on the floor, the towel half folded in my lap, and cried. Not loud, not the kind of crying that shakes your shoulders, the kind that slips out quiet and clean, like it's been waiting years to be released. It wasn't grief, it wasn't anger, it was relief. The soft ache that comes when you finally understand why something had to happen. That night, under a sky full of stars, I went out back, pulled out the pale pink robe. That robe. The one she'd worn, the one he'd touched. The fabric still carried traces of lavender detergent, but underneath it was the faint echo of something else. A reminder of a wound I'd already healed. I placed it gently in the small metal fire pit, lit a match. The flame caught fast. I watched the lace sleeves curl and blacken, watched the pink fade to gray, then to nothing. Not as revenge, not even as closure, as cleansing. The night air smelled faintly of smoke and salt. Somewhere in the distance, a frog croaked. I sat in one of Aunt Joyce's old wicker chairs and watched until the last ember dimmed. When it was done, I felt lighter, like a chapter had burned itself shut. I thought about how I used to love him, how I used to bend myself into smaller shapes so he could feel big, how I smiled through disappointment, how I ironed his shirts like prayers and tucked away my own ambitions so his dreams could fit, how I smiled at church picnics, family reunions, work events, pretending the bruises on my spirit were just bad weeks, how I'd spent years trying to make a home out of something that was already hollow. And still, even then, I never gave him this house, never told him where Aunt Joyce's key was buried, never wrote his name beside mine on that deed, because somewhere deep down, before I even knew why, a voice in me whispered, "Keep something for yourself." And I did. Now that small something had grown. It had become my safety, my sanctuary, myself. The woman I was now didn't flinch, didn't chase, didn't negotiate for scraps of peace. She documented it, she filed it, she notarized it, and she walked away. That was my closure. No screaming, no porch showdown, no Facebook quotes or whispered gossip at church. Just a signature, a swing, and a sunset. As dusk settled over Clearwater, I poured another glass of tea, sat back on the porch swing. The air was cool, soft against my skin. The fig tree rustled in the yard like an old friend telling me it was proud. I looked out toward the water. The horizon was gold, fading into rose. I didn't see loss there anymore. I saw promise, the kind of promise that doesn't come from another person, but from yourself, the kind that says, you made it through. My feet were warm against the wooden planks. My chest felt open, light. The cottage hummed around me, alive again. For the first time in years, I wasn't waiting for anything, not an apology, not a reason, not even closure. Because closure isn't something you get. It's something you decide. And I'd already decided. This chapter, this woman, was complete. If this story struck a chord, hit like, subscribe, and tell me what you think in the comments.